Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Davis. I'm one of the co-founders of OddsView, which is the easiest way for you to make 5 grand on the internet this month. Here are some pictures of our users doing just that. The goal of this video is to be a comprehensive but also quick guide on what EV betting is and also how to EV bet on OddsView. We have a very powerful platform, and so I want to make sure that everyone is able to take advantage of the tools we have. So it's going to be a platform overview as well as filters, guides, alerts, guides, stuff like that. Firstly, in terms of expected profits, so this is what you might expect to make in your first month. That's directly tied to your bankroll. So the more money you have available to start, the more money you'll make. There's a big difference between having 2,000 to start, the amount you'll make with 2,000 to start, versus 5,000 to start versus 10,000 to start. So if we were to make a recommended starting bankroll size, the minimum size, I would say 1,500 to 2,000 USD is what I would recommend. Now, the expected profits for that. If you have 2,000 to start and you're able to leverage sign-up bonuses and things like that, we have seen our users make 2,000 to 5,000 in that first month. If you have 5,000 to start, it's realistic to expect anywhere between 4,000 and 7,000. And if you have 10,000 to start, anywhere between 7,000 to 12,000 in that first month, 7,000 to 10,000 profit. Now, something I want to bring attention to is the compounding effect of your bankroll. So even if you just start with $2,000 your first month, that's the smallest, whatever recommended bankroll size, by the end of the first month, you might have profited 5 grand, which means you now have a $7,000 bankroll to work with. So you'll have a lot more earning power with that $7,000 bankroll. At the end of the second month, you might have profited $10,000. So you might now have a $17,000 bankroll, and you can make a lot more money with the $17,000 bankroll than the 2001 you started with. And so that's the beauty of this. You get to compound your bankroll size and make more and more money every month. Now, there's other factors like getting limited off sportsbooks that are going to cut into some of that growth, but that core concept still stands, and that's a key part of EV betting or making money in the sports betting space in general. You're able to leverage your entire bankroll pretty much day in and day out. And so we'll quickly go over a general overview of EV betting for those of you guys that don't exactly know what it is or need a refresher. Pretty much, EV betting is one of the few ways to consistently make money in sports betting over the long term. We do that by finding bets that are or have value. What we mean by value, it can depend on the system that you guys use, but regardless of what it is, a bet will always say that there is X amount of EV, so 6% EV or 13.7% EV. And what that means is over time, over a large enough sample size of placing bets using that system, you would expect to make, in this case, 13.7% on the money that you've wagered. A key point is that you need a large enough sample size. So, you can't just place 10 bets and determine that something works, even if all 10 won or all 10 lost. What you need is a sample size of at least, I would say 300, but ideally 600 to understand if your system is working or not. So that is the barest but most accurate explanation of what EV betting is. You pretty much have a system of finding what you think are valuable bets. You determine that it's 5% EV, or bets like this are 10% EV, and over a large enough sample size, you expect to make that on the money that you've wagered. Now, getting into the specifics of how we calculate EV at OddsView, what we like to do here is we have a really robust system of calculating EV. So whatever you see here, whether you're a beginner or someone more advanced, whatever we're showing you here is very, very likely EV, and honestly is probably a low ball on the EV calculation. So if we say it's 5%, it might actually be closer to 8 to 10%. We did this because we saw a lot of people in the space actually inflate their EV. They do the opposite. So they might say things are 10, 20, 30% EV when it's closer to like 5 or 6. And if you are overestimating the amount of EV, you're actually missizing your bets and you're risking just like blowing up your bankroll. So we wanted to err on the side of caution, but that's to your benefit. Anything you see here is pretty much good to go. All right, so now into how specifically OddsView calculates their EV and what our EV algorithm is, because this is important to people. If you're paying for a service, you should know how the EV is calculated. How we calculate it is we use something called a DVIGD market average to determine the fair odds, and then we determine outliers from that. So I'll break down exactly what that means. You pretty much need to know what the fair odds of a bet are to even get an understanding of what is the probability of this bet happening? What are the true odds? And so how we figure that out is pretty much we say sportsbooks have a ton of data and models and historical data and all that to actually determine their odds. So we're pretty much treating them as accurate in most cases. And so what we'll do for a bet is we'll say, well, in this case, there are 7 sports books that are all saying different prices for what this line should be. DraftKings at -110, MGM at -105, Fanatics at -105, and Caesars +108, right? We have a ton of books saying a bunch of different things. And so the DVIGT market average, so this is what the sports books actually think the line should be across all the sports books, is +112. And so we're using all the sports books data to determine that this is what this bet should be priced at, +112. That's that first part, fair odds. The second part is then saying, okay, well, if we think that the fair odds is +112, we're using the sports books data against themselves and saying the data is +112, then why is this bet +130? This bet on ProfitX is +130. That gives you a really solid clue that this line is mispriced. It's significantly in conflict or against what all the other 7 sports books are saying in this case. So that's pretty much how OddsView breaks it down. We use a DVIGT market average. We use all the sports books. We don't determine if one book is sharp or another because honestly, I don't think anyone has enough data to determine that. And if there is one book sharp in one particular thing, that might change over time. That might be only for specific markets or leagues. So what we do is we say, okay, we'll just use all the market data to determine a DVIGT market average. And so specifically what that means here, and we'll go over it, right? There's 6.4% EV. That's that EV number that you'd expect to make on the money that you bet over time. There's some game information, there's some market information, there's some bet information, but the meat of it is you have an outlier. We've tagged this as an outlier or a profitable bet over time at +130 when the fair odds are +112. Additionally, also this is that recommended bet size. This is based directly on the EV that we've calculated as well as the total size of your bankroll. The stuff on the left-hand side of the chart is a way of visualizing the data here, and it's a super useful tool because you're able to see how odds are moving over time. And so you can see here, right, that ProfitX, the line that we're talking about, the line that we'd like to take advantage of is +130, and it's super far away from what all the other sports books are saying. And so if I had to bet, I would say these, other 7 sports books are correct, and ProfitX is, doing something weird. They're mispricing their line, and I'd like to take advantage of that for my 6.4% EV. That is how OddsView calculates EV. It's worked great over time. It works great for pre-match. It works especially well for live betting, and so that's a system that we've built. Now, down the line, we'd like to add the ability, and we are currently actually working on the ability for users to add what they'd like to determine a sharp book to be. So, Pinnacle for NBA mainlines, great. There's some data to suggest that is very, very accurate and probably more accurate than like Fanatics or Fliff, for example. But right now, the DVIGT market average is more than enough, and it's honestly, I think, the most beginner-friendly and intermediately friendly, EV betting algorithm there. The second thing you want to do, and we get a lot of questions, is like, what filters should I set? So by default, we pretty much enable everything. So the next thing you're going to want to do is customize your filters. So this is where the customization of OddsView really starts to get powerful. And we actually just revamped our filter system, I think 2 weeks ago. So it's a lot more powerful now. In terms of EB filters, what you can do is go over to this filter section here, go to general. You can set a minimum percentage of EB that you want to see. So something like 4%. There you can see an odds range, minimum seconds available, and min liquidity. So I'll go over what all those mean right now. Minimum percentage is just like, we don't want to see anything below 4%. That's what this means. So that's what I like to do typically for pre-match. In terms of the odds range, something good to start with, but you really don't need, is like -400 and like +200. This means we'll only see bets within this range. So we're not going to see some super long shot like +1,000. Again, this is for the fair odds, not the actual odds of the bet. So if it's determined that the fair odds is, +110, but you're getting an opportunity for +1,000, that's still going to pop up. In terms of min seconds available, this only really applies to live or pre-match. I'm not going to get into too much of the live betting stuff right now, at least in this guide. But I would say just leave this at 30 or whatever the default is. In terms of min liquidity, so there's been some new sportsbook that have popped up recently where players can actually place bets themselves, or they want other players to bet against them. So if, for example, I would bet on the Lakers money line and I want to put $100 down, someone would be able to bet on the Lakers to lose that game for X amount of dollars. So but pretty much what you want to do is, if I set a min liquidity of 1,000, that means I can get $1,000 on this, but that doesn't necessarily mean I could get $10,000 on it. So I think a good start usually for this is 500. I think something good for min liquidity is somewhere like in the $250 to $500 range, depending on what your bankroll is. I think you could even get down to 100, depending on what you're looking for. In terms of sports books, this is going to be highly dependent on where you are. So by default, we're going to enable all of them, but you're going to slowly understand that not every book is available in every place. So yeah. The second one actually is EV must include, which is a highly requested feature. Pretty much this means if we're going to show you an EV opportunity, there has to be odds available for this book in particular. So if we were to say select something like EV must include DraftKings, for example, if you clicked that, you would be able to see that, okay, well, these are all opportunities, EV opportunities that have a DraftKings line available. And then additionally, what you can set is a minimum amount of books. So some people don't want to see less than 3 books that we've used to determine the fair odds. That's fair. I think what you can do is something like 4 books. So every opportunity here would have at least 4 books worth of data. And I think if you're just starting out, something like this could be good. I honestly wouldn't include an EV must include, but I would set the minimum books to 4. In terms of leagues, I would just leave everything on. And I would also leave all of the markets on. Just understand that if you're betting on more obscure things like player props, sportsbooks are going to be able to pick up on that a little bit quicker, maybe flag your account a little bit quicker. But just keep that in mind, because sometimes the opportunities are just worth it. We've seen player props that are really messed up when they should be, minus 300, and then they are like plus 500. So, I would say just leave all the markets on so you can pick your spots wisely. And then secondly, there is a date range. So if I only want to see bets within the next 24 hours or the next 7 days, or just pretty much everything, this is what you would do. This can be useful for pre-match. So if I don't want to lock up, put $2,000 on a bet that's going to fill in like April, because this happens sometimes with boxing, and I don't want to lock up my money that way, you could just filter for the next 24 hours. That means you're able to leverage most of your bankroll for every single day, and that lets you slowly pick up and compound your profits. Okay, great. So that kind of goes over the filter system, as well as some defaults that I think would be good. All right, so as promised, we're going to go over a couple more real life examples of pre-match EV betting. We got a ton of requests in the Discord, even with all the streams for live betting and videos out there. We get a lot of requests for us to teach you guys how to pick off these pre-match EV spots. So we'll go over a couple of them right now. Again, reminder, anything here is probably pretty much good to go, but if you guys want to understand more deeply the EV, then I'm always happy to do that. So firstly, for this spot, same exact system as what we said before. 8.8% for this market. It's this college basketball player's threes for over 1.5. We've picked it off. We've identified that Bet Rivers at plus 128 is going to be a good opportunity because the fair odds, the DVIG market average again, is plus 110, and the recommended bet size is just about $84. Now, breaking it down, right? We flagged Bet Rivers at plus 126 and actually Bet Parks at plus 126, but these are actually pretty much the same book, just a little detail. And so going into the specifics for the data, MGM 365, pretty much at like a low plus 100, plus 110. All the other books kind of saying something similar. So Caesars, minus 115, Fanatics minus 110, and Rebet minus 120. Pretty much all this combined is giving us that fair odds of plus 110. And then you just look at Bet Rivers, and Bet Rivers is just spazzing out. Bet Rivers is giving you almost plus 130. Huge value here. And then, okay, cool. So that looks pretty much good to go. We can click this deep link to take us specifically to that Bet Rivers game. This is how we go ahead and place that bet. But what you might be curious is like, okay, this stuff on the left-hand side, the chart. Well, I want to understand what I'm seeing on the chart. And pretty much the chart is a visualization of what's going on the right-hand side, but it's also telling you how the line has moved in the last, basically pretty much since we first started tracking the line. So what this means is you'll see the same information, BetRivers, plus 128 all the way down here when all the other books are pretty much clustered up here. It's not a very tight cluster, but you see stuff at minus like 143. Pretty much the fair odds is saying it's closer to minus 110, and then you have BetRivers super far away. The other nice to see feature is that this EV has been available for quite a while. So it's not because some event happened and then some book moved, like BetRivers moved and everyone is trying to adjust. It's because there is a real opportunity here. It's been here for the last 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours that this EV has been up. It's not because something just happened. So a lot of users like to use the chart specifically for this information. If you're using a tool that doesn't have something like this, that doesn't show you, the line history, there's going to be a good amount of EV opportunities where it's just because one book moved, you pick up, you slam $1,000 on that line, and then all the other books move to it because it just happened to be the first book to respond to like a player injury event, for example. And then you are probably losing actually 3 to 4% at least on just like the VIG for taking that bet. So you really want a tool specifically like this, and it'll save you money over the long term. Cool. Let's go ahead and look for another example. All right, so I picked out another example here. It's a little bit different than the other ones, but I think it's going to be useful as well. So here we have 4 book minimums, so a lot fewer books than before, but this is what we're interested in. So we have a Pinnacle line at plus 192 for something in tennis, even the set 1 winner. We also have DraftKings at plus 185 and MGM at 185. So these 3 pretty solid books agree that the fair odds is roughly like plus 230, and that's what it comes out to after you devig it. And then you have Fanatics giving you plus 250. So that weights to 6.1% EV. Now, we can kind of visualize this on the left-hand side. This is actually a fairly fresh market. There isn't that much data, so, 1.5 hours. And we can see that, 185 and these two at 185, this is DraftKings all the way over here, and then you have Fanatics all the way over here. You also even had FanDuel open the line at, 205. And so that's a little bit of extra information. It's currently not available right now. Otherwise, FanDuel would show their line here. But you pretty much have DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, Pinnacle, 4 books saying, it should be plus 230, and then you have Fanatics saying plus 250. You could pick this spot out to say, okay, Fanatics is a good opportunity here. We can just keep going, but pretty much that is like the system. Let's do one more. And so actually, here's another example. I think this will also be pretty interesting to you guys. 3.7% EV, and then you have, it's for BetRivers at plus 125. This is a pretty interesting one because, okay, let's do the breakdown, right? Plus 100, DK, MGM plus 100. Again, like BetRivers, BetParx, and BellyBet, they're pretty much the same book. So we treat it as one book in the calculation. So this is just one at 125, and then ESPN at 105. So you pretty much have 3 other unique books pricing at very low plus 100s. That gives it a fair odds of plus 117. And then you have BetRivers giving you plus 125. So naturally, this just kind of checks out. According to the EV system, you would go ahead and bet this. Something interesting to further give you more information is, all right, we look at the left-hand side. So 35 minutes ago, 2 of the books actually responded to, I guess, some kind of information. They actually spiked up. So, DraftKings actually started at plus 120, went all the way to plus 100. ESPN slowly made their way up to, plus 105. And then, MGM also spiked up from, minus 120 to plus 100. So 3 books actually clearly have adjusted their lines and responded to something, whereas BetRivers is just kind of like hanging around there, like not making any changes. So this would suggest, 3 books have properly responded to something, and then BetRivers is mispriced, lagging, however you want to describe it, but in either case, this is a great spot to make money, and that's what we care about. So that's a good example of using the chart, for the left-hand side to give you some extra information. You can determine when a book is just kind of stale. All right, so I think those are all of the examples that I'm gonna go over. I think that should clear up a lot of the, I guess, just give you guys more information on how to use the system. Last thing is our alert system, which a lot of people enjoy. So let's just get into it. Pretty much, if I've set up this, EV unnamed filter, what I can do actually is to get alerts for this either through email or Discord. So I actually get a lot of these plays sent directly to me through Discord. No app required. You can just get started today. What you want to do is go over to the left-hand side, you get over to alerts, and you're able to see pretty much all of the EV or all of the filters that I've set up for EV as well as arbitrage. And because I have linked it to my Discord as well as my email, the email that I have my Audio account under, I'm able to apply the alerts. So if I want to get Discord alerts for whatever I just created right now, which is, bets in the next 24 hours with a minimum of 4% for this odds range, what I could do is turn on the alerts for, we have them for pre-match as well as live betting. We can turn it on for pre-match, turn it on for Discord, click apply, boom. I will start getting Discord alerts. And what we've done is actually really nice the way that they look. This is an example of some of the plays I've had sent directly to my Discord. They're just beautiful charts that show you exactly what's going on. So this is an EV play that got sent to me like 20 minutes ago, which was to take this bet on ProfitX. And look, let's just go ahead and break it down, right? So everyone pretty much has it clustered up here in the minus ranges for fair odds of plus 105. And then we're giving them, or ProfitX is giving you odds for plus 134. So completely off from the market and a great spot for value, which we think is 12% EV. And so, yeah, that's just an example of the power. You get a ton of, there's just so many notifications that you get throughout the day. So it's a great way to make sure that, okay, you don't have to just be stuck at your computer all the time. You can do this stuff on the go. And so that should break down pretty much everything I wanted to do for this new and updated EV betting guide. It's a little bit more beginner friendly. It's a little bit more informative. So it's less of just like, come on here and set this up. It's like, no, come here, set this up, but this is also why and why you should use us. If you guys have any other questions, hop into the Discord, and also feel free to use the new user code 35% off your first month for code Davis. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one. Peace.